mine gets stopped at Japanese customs every single time he visits Japan. Without exception. Every time. When he told me the reason, I was genuinely surprised. And that reason might apply to you too. Hi, I'm Ruble. People who get stopped at customs all have one thing in common. They were carrying something unexpected, something that most travelers have with them, without ever realizing it could be a problem. In this video, I'll walk you through the customs process, explain the real reason people get stopped, and break down exactly what you can and can't bring into Japan. 1. How customs works. Once you've collected your luggage from baggage claim, it's time to go through customs. Before you proceed, you'll need to submit a customs declaration form. If you've already completed your declaration through Visit Japan web, simply show your QR code. If you haven't registered, you'll need to fill out a paper declaration form available at the airport. For a step-by-step guide on how to register for Visit Japan web, check the link in the description. Once you've submitted your declaration, you'll choose a lane. If you have nothing to declare, head to the green lane marked Nothing to Declare. If you have items to declare, use the red lane marked Goods to Declare. Most travelers can walk straight through the green lane without any issues. However, there are countless cases where travelers head to the green lane thinking it doesn't apply to them, only to find out they were actually carrying something that required declaration. I'll explain exactly what needs to be declared later in this video. 2A. Why you get stopped. Your baggage. So what do people who get stopped at customs all have in common? The answer is food, but not chocolate or snacks. Processed foods and packaged snacks are generally fine. The kind of food that customs is concerned about is fresh produce, meat, fruit, vegetables, and plants. Things like sausages and meat products, apples and oranges, vegetables with soil still on them. These items are strictly controlled because they can carry pests and diseases into Japan. Now, you might be thinking, I would never bring any of that. But wait a moment. Do you have any meat or fruit products packed away as souvenirs in your bag? Did you put leftover fruit from your in-flight meal into your bag? Every year, countless travelers unknowingly attempt to bring these items into Japan, and customs knows exactly what to look for. 2B. Why you get stopped. You yourself. Customs officers aren't just looking at your bags, they're also looking at you. Officers observe not only what you're carrying, but how you're behaving. Here are the types of travelers who tend to attract attention. First, an unusually short stay. If you're only staying 3 or 4 nights but you're carrying 3 suitcases, that kind of mismatch between your luggage and the length of your trip can raise suspicion. Second, appearing nervous. Even if you have nothing to hide, if you're visibly anxious, avoiding eye contact, or acting in a way that seems off, you may be flagged for additional screening. The best thing you can do is stay calm and act naturally. And third, your country of departure. Travelers arriving from countries or regions known for high levels of drug trafficking are statistically more likely to be selected for inspection. As for my friend I mentioned at the beginning, looking back, he may have been checking more than a few of these boxes. 3. What you can and can't bring in. Let's break down exactly what is and isn't allowed into Japan. First, items that are completely prohibited. Narcotics and firearms are obvious, but one thing that catches many travelers off guard is certain medications. If a medication contains ingredients that aren't approved for sale in Japan, it cannot be brought in, even if it's available over the counter in your home country. If you're traveling with prescription medication, make sure to check the rules in advance. Next, items that require quarantine inspection. This includes the meat, fruit, vegetables, and plants we talked about earlier. Not everything in this category is banned outright, but as a general rule, these items must be declared at the quarantine counter. If you try to bring them in without declaring them, they will be confiscated. And finally, items that exceed the duty-free allowance. You're allowed up to 3 bottles of alcohol, 200 cigarettes, and up to 200,000 yen worth of other goods purchased overseas. Anything beyond these limits is subject to taxation. If you're planning to bring a lot of souvenirs into Japan, this is something to pay close attention to. 4. What happens if you get caught? So what actually happens if a problem is discovered? The short answer is, it depends on the situation. The most common outcome is on-the-spot confiscation. If you're carrying undeclared fruit or meat products, they'll simply be taken from you right there. As long as there's no indication of intent, that's usually where it ends. The next level is being taken to a separate room for additional screening. If customs suspects an undeclared item or a false declaration, you'll be escorted to a private room where every piece of your luggage will be thoroughly inspected. This takes time, and the psychological pressure alone can be significant. "I didn't know" doesn't always hold up as an excuse, and the most serious outcome is fines, denial of entry, or arrest. If customs determines that you were deliberately smuggling goods or filing a false declaration, you can be arrested for violating Japan's customs law. And even if your visa is perfectly valid, you can still be denied entry. Ignorance is not always a defense. That's exactly why it's so important to understand how to correctly fill out your declaration form, which is what we'll cover in the next section. 5. How to fill out your declaration form. After everything we've just covered, here's the good news. If you fill out your declaration form correctly, there's nothing to worry about. There are 3 questions on the form that require particular attention. The first is, are you carrying any food items? If you have any fresh produce, meat, fruit, vegetables, or plants, make sure to check yes. Checking yes does not automatically mean your items will be confiscated. In many cases, a quick check at the quarantine counter is all it takes, and you'll be free to bring them in without any issues. What you don't want to do is check no and try to bring them through anyway. The second is, do you have any goods that exceed the duty-free allowance? If your alcohol, tobacco, or total purchases exceed the duty-free limits, check yes. And the third is, are you carrying more than 1 million yen in cash? If you're carrying that amount and you check no without thinking and it's discovered later, you could find yourself in serious trouble. When it comes to your declaration form, honesty is always the fastest way through. So, how was that? Customs doesn't have to be something you dread, as long as you're prepared. Let's go over the key points one more time. Complete your declaration in advance using Visit Japan Web. Choose the correct lane based on whether or not you have items to declare. Always declare fresh food items such as meat, fruit, and vegetables. And above all, fill out your declaration form honestly. That's the single most important thing you can do. Once you've made it through customs, there's still plenty to take care of. Getting a SIM card, exchanging cash, and figuring out how to get into the city. We've covered all of that in a separate video, so make sure to check the link in the description. Earst Japan will continue bringing you the charm of Japan and the latest travel information. See you again in the next video. Bye! See you!